that was right before I hit burnout. And it was like, that was happening as I was hitting burnout. And burnout, if you haven't had burnout, you definitely want to avoid it, because it's kind of a scary thing. You feel it on a really deep emotional level, mental level. A lot of my clients, like I was able to maintain my business just fine during those years, like where I would say a lot of people didn't notice. But my mental and emotional health was declining, and as a result of that, just like I was kind of scared ultimately, because I was like, man, I hope I just have enough energy to keep bringing money in the door and like building the business. Yeah, fitness and health, man, it's been a big part of my journey these recent years.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so what's the key to in our, like you got your real estate business, obviously you're out, going out all the time and doing stuff like that. What is the key to staying healthy when you're working for yourself in real estate?
That's a good question, man. I really struggled with it, probably like most of us have, as a real estate agent. I mean, it's pulling you in all different directions, and then trying to do the work-life balance. It could be very challenging. I started saying no more to going, I traveled quite a bit, conferences and all of that. So I didn't say no to everything, but just started saying no more. And then I hired a coach too. That was a big part of it. I actually just hired a coach a couple of months ago. And that honestly was a game changer, because I mean, for my personality anyways, when I make an investment, I really want to get a return. I really want to make sure that it's worth it. So I hired a really great coach, and that really solved the consistency issue, because he's got everything, here's the standard, like here's what we're reaching for. And he did a really good job explaining all of it, and then operating within the app and tracking all of my calories. That really helped just take all of the thinking out of it and just follow what he's doing. And so it's actually been about 50 days or so, I think 60 days now, of really solid consistency on the nutrition and the fitness. Because before I would have spurts of consistency. It would get interrupted by a phone call or an email or something more important, what felt more important, so.
Yeah, for sure. I find like I'm so good during the week, and then, the weekend comes and I'm like, I'll have one, I'll go to In-N-Out one time. And then that just turns into like the whole weekend is just whatever.
Binge eating. Yeah. Well, it's hard, man, to like, it seems hard. It definitely at first seemed daunting, because prior to working with my coach, I was eating, I have a really high metabolism, but as soon as 8 a.m. rolls around, I mean, over the last few years, when I finally squeezed all my work hours between 8 and 5, I'm a
Yeah.
recovering workaholic like most religions, but I squeezed all my work hours between 8 and 5, 6 days a week. And it's like, well, now I really have to be efficient and get through things. Well, when I brought on my coach, and it's like, well, now you're eating 7 times a day. you know,
Wow.
that was, I had to get really specific on, I put all of it, all the snack times, the meal times in my calendar. And I just set an appointment for myself. And so I set all my other appointments around my eating schedule, essentially. And it's not, I've found a way to make it where, doing some food prep ahead of time, like take a couple of hours on a Saturday or whatever. That's been super helpful. And so honestly, that was the big one. And now that I've kind of got that dialed, it took me a few weeks to get that dialed initially. It's actually not bad at all, man.
It's crazy what that accountability will do, right?
Totally.
To a coach. I'm going to segue this into real estate. I'm glad you mentioned this, because a lot of times people will ask me, how do you become successful in real estate? And one of the first things I say is, hey, you got to either find like a community, a mentor, or a coach, because that's the first thing that someone's holding you accountable. And like you said, you got to put stuff into an app. Now you're accountable to that system, and that's what's going to, because in our industry, obviously, otherwise no one's holding you accountable.
Right. Well, in numbers, I don't remember who coined the phrase, but I hear it all the time in real estate. The numbers don't lie. Track your numbers, right? And it's when you track your numbers, you have more clarity to reach for the vision, to have a vision, right?
Yeah.
And to know what you're doing every day, and you know where you're falling short. Like if I'm at a calorie deficit, It's like, well, I guess I'm eating a few more calories at 9 o'clock at night. And the same thing with real estate. That the numbers keep you accountable for sure.
Are you stressed out juggling? Oh, shoot, I really can't juggle. Now my dog's gonna grab all of it. Okay, listen, this video is brought to you by All-Star VAs. Are you stressed out juggling your calendar, your email, all of the tasks you have to do, plus your personal life, which doesn't leave you any time to actually do the stuff that you got into real estate to do, like going on client appointments, negotiating deals, all the fun stuff? Look, if that's you, I have a solution for you. My team of all-star virtual assistants helps me do all of those things so that I can do the stuff that I love doing. And we can install an all-star virtual assistant for you in your business, whether that's an executive assistant, a social media manager to blow up all your accounts, a marketing manager, an inside sales associate, a customer care manager, and plenty of other positions starting as low as $4 an hour. All you got to do is go to allstarvas.com, book a call with our team. We'll tell you all about the program and see if it's a fit for you. All right, back to the video. So John, I'm super excited to chat with you. Like I said at the beginning, you're in a cool market that I used to visit all the time. And I know you've built a really interesting kind of niche business up there. And so I'd love to hear about how you do that. By the way, folks, when you're watching this, referrals for John's Market, let us know exactly, John, where you sell, so we know where to send you referrals. And then we'd love to hear about this awesome business you've built up there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thanks, Danny. So I specialize in the Big Bear Valley, which is a 4-season vacation rental town, ski resort town, within 3 hours from Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego, Palm Springs. We're right in the hub of Southern California's greatest cities. And so a lot of our buyers come from those areas. But most people are buying second homes, and then they want to short-term rent it when they're not using it. And so through the years, I've specialized in the short-term rental space. But yeah, it's Big Bear Lake, Big Bear City, Fawnskin, Sugarloaf. Those are the 4 main areas of Big Bear. And so I've been specializing in those main areas for 14 years. And then over the last few years, I've actually, because I get a lot of people asking, hey, do you do Arrowhead, Crestline, Running Springs, which is just down, it's the next lake community down below by about 30-45 minutes. So kind of right between here and the base of the mountain. And so I did expand to those areas as well over the last few years. So now I basically am, the mountain man, as a lot of people call me.
That's cool, man. So John, how were you able to, you started from scratch, obviously, when you moved up there, but how were you able to build a business there in a, what you would say is a niche market?
Yeah. So, I definitely want to give credit to the 2 teams that I worked with prior. Really grateful for them. I worked at Coldwell Banker. My initial coach was Tim Wood. He's passed away since, but yeah, a reputable broker on a national level at the time. He was a big, real estate coach type of guy. And so super grateful for him. I worked with him for a couple of years, him and his son. And then from there, I moved over to Keller Williams, and I worked with the top team at the time. Certainly still an incredible team. And I worked with them for about 6.5 years. So definitely want to give credit where it's due. That really helped, build a sphere and just reputation, within the real estate space. And I left them back in 2018. I'd always wanted to start my own real estate business as I really learned the ropes through the years. But it started when I went out and started all over again. I call it my sabbatical. I took 2 months. I moved my family out of Big Bear and then moved us right back. And that's another story for another day. But what that did was it really kind of allowed me to clear my head and kind of clear the table and start all over again, because I did leave all of my business with the former team that I was working with. But what I ran with was this idea that really I started to lean into in 2017. I had become their top producing agent, had sold 52 properties that year, if I recall.
Wow.
And as I was getting into 2018, I was running with this idea where I actually told the team, I'm not taking any more leads. I have this thing that I want to work on. And it was this idea of, you know what, you really nurture the people that you get to help. You take care of your little sphere. and they'll take care of you, right? And so that was the beginning of that thought, and I still performed very well that year. So a lot of units, and I ultimately I moved back. I moved away and moved back 19 and started my own business in real estate again from the ground up. And I just ran with the same idea, and it's basically, the way I simplify it is is kind of a ratio of 1 = infinity. One person opens up so much opportunity to serve many more people, right? And so I started March of 2019, so I had 9 months, and just built this network and referral group, and really focused a lot on agent to agent referrals. And I helped, I believe it was 19 families that year, and then quickly jumped into the following year. I think it was 57.
Wow.
The following year, I think I hit 60 units, and then just continued with that. And so I proved to myself really that you don't need to buy leads. You don't need to go out. I mean, you can, and there's a lot of incredibly successful people that do that. But for me, I always valued authenticity. I never wanted to door knock, never wanted to cold call. None of that felt natural to me. I just wanted to build relationships and love on people, and they loved me back. And so fast forward, I've built a business that's very predictable, and for the most part, some would argue that's not predictable, John. Referrals really is, when you build a sphere. And I started building a team, and then went back to running as a solo agent, and still did very well last year, and off to a great start this year.
That's awesome, John. That is a super cool story. And, it just goes to show when you put that passion in and you do the things that you really love to do, and your business grows. So that's amazing. So take me all the way back. I'm curious. I always love asking, great, like top producing agents. What was your first sale, if you remember it?
That's a good question, man. I do remember, if it's the one that immediately came to my memory. I mean, I was at Coldwell Banker. This was couple of months, and I got relicensed and officially started in April of 2012, at the bottom of the market, at least for Big Bear.
Mm-hmm.
The financial crisis of 2008.
Yep.
Yeah, if it's the person I'm thinking of, they walked in. I was on floor time, and I had just a great connection with these people. And I don't remember what the exact price was. Yeah, it started there. I mean, floor time.
Yeah.
Tim, the way he trained me in those earlier years, all the agents working with him, is two simple things: know your inventory and the stats thereof. And then said, get out and look at real estate. And then when you meet people, get them in your car and go show them real estate. And so it was really know your know your inventory, know the stats thereof. And I did. I mastered the market, sought every single home, knew all the areas in that first year. And so that was a success, because we jumped in the car, picked their brain, heard them out. And I'm sure we sat for a moment at my office, jumped in the car, and I'm like, oh yeah, that one sold for that. Oh, I remember him or her, like just driving the streets and giving them a tour. And I knew the ins and the outs. And that really established the baseline for the rest of my business and career,
I mean, John, I'll tell you, that's such great advice. I can't tell you how many agents I'll meet, and then they don't know the inventory in there. And I'm like, listen, dude, that's your product. Like, if you worked at Nike and you didn't know about the shoes, we'd have a problem. But agents just, a lot of them will not go out and see homes and stuff. So I think that's such great advice. So John, fast forward us from the first sale from floor time. I know you said you had a great year last year. This year, what is your goal in terms of either number of units or sales volume?
Yeah, super great question. And I focused a little less on units and volume this year. What my main focus is, my year always starts a few months in advance, at least, because I don't want to be like, I don't want to start January 1st. Usually there's a lag time, 60, 90 day lag time typically. And so really great question. As I looked into 2025, what I really wanted first and foremost is to be the healthiest version of myself, because when you're operating at a health, you could really perform at a high level. That's coming from a place of, I hit significant burnout 2 years ago. And so that was first and foremost, healthy self, healthy marriage, healthy parenting, just overall health. And my energy's been through the roof because of that, so that's where it started. But with the team, I mean, I had mentioned I started a team, and then I ended up kind of scaling it back to running solo at the beginning of last year, and been solo. I do have a transaction coordinator, do have an assistant, an administrative assistant, virtual assistant, but I'm actually bringing on 2 new agents. So now that I'm like, I've been taking care of myself, getting healthy. I now have like a lot of my mental equity back, which is great. Have the mental capacity to really think clearly and scale the business. And so I'm actually in the process right now. I haven't announced it yet officially, but I'm bringing on 2 new agents. One of them is my wife, which is amazing. And bringing on 2 buyer's agents. And one of my passions is coaching. I always want to pay it forward when I learn something, when I've made mistakes, or when I've learned really valuable lessons. I love to pay that forward and give it back to people. So I'm kind of stepping into my element now. Really excited about that. So
that's awesome, man. Congratulations. That's really fun, or not fun, depending on what you find about working with your wife. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, she's my best friend, and we've gone through a lot of challenges through the years, but we both highly value growth. And so it's this last year and a half of health. Definitely have been experiencing that in our marriage. And so she's as excited as I am. But yeah,
Awesome.
that's the focus. I mean, obviously, I do have goals with units. I have kind of this baseline of, at minimum, I want to be at that 30, or that 20 million in volume range, which is what I did last year. And, but this year I really, where my head is at is 30 to 40 million plus in volume realistically, because maintaining the integrity of what it is that I built, which is having a great work-life balance now, and maintaining that health, both for myself and for my team, wanting them to honor that as well, and honor themselves in that as well, and maintain, really striving for health. I think that's a realistic number, bringing on 2 new team members. And then beyond that, we'll likely scale.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right. So John, you said you're interested in coaching. So let me have you put your coaching hat on. You've seen a lot of real estate agents. Obviously said you had a team, scaled it back. Now you're bringing on, 2 more team members. Our industry is a little interesting to me. I came from, I was an attorney before. So I always find real estate interesting because how many people, come in, come out, aren't successful, whatever. So for you, what do you see as kind of some of the key qualities of agents who are successful versus ones who don't make it in real estate?
Yeah, I love that question. I would say the key qualities that make or break a person in real estate is you have to have the willingness, be willing to hit limits, and then have the grit, I guess I would call it, and the resourcefulness to get past those limits, right? There's going to always be limitations. There's going to be hurdles starting anything that is worth having or worth doing. And real estate is definitely one of those things. A lot of people get in thinking they're going to make a lot of money, and certainly there's a lot of money to be made. But if you don't have the mindset of, I'm here to learn, I'm going to overcome, I'm going to be better, right? That mindset is super important. And then just the underlying core values of such as growth. If you value growth, you're going to keep going. Like the rainy days, cool. Bust out an umbrella, and get on with it. Even if you have to do less like in those tough, like maybe a tough day, well, the next day, get back and reach for 100%, So yeah, I would say, to summarize that, a willingness to grow, a willingness to overcome, a willingness to surpass limitations and not be afraid of them mindset, right?
I think those are all fantastic qualities for a real estate agent, for sure. Piggybacking off that, let me ask you this. If I took you and I dropped you in a brand new market, I moved you out here to Dallas with me, and you didn't know anyone, how would you go about getting business in those first 30, 60, 90 days, maybe that first year? I know you've done this a couple times. And, and my goal really is to help agents with strategy and grow their business, whether they're starting from scratch or not. But, I'd love to hear what you would do if you started over again.
It's so funny that you asked that question, because literally my wife and I have coffee every morning at 7, and literally we were talking about that this morning, because
Nice.
that is looking into the end of this year and the next year. I am planning on breaking into another area that I frequent and love, and ultimately want to have live in part time. Right. So here's exactly what I would do.
All right.
I would start out by obviously moving there, renting a place for 6 months. That's a commitment, right? And immediately I would find my favorite coffee shop. I would find a coffee shop that would become my favorite, that would be frequented, right? I would go there every single day for an hour, and I would get to know all of the baristas' names and all of the staff, and just authentically as I'm ordering coffee. And what would take up my hour, at least initially for the first couple of weeks, is I would pull up a map and Google Maps, whatever, Apple Maps, and I would immediately start memorizing the area around me, starting from where I'm sitting all the way to beyond in the streets. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking at what are the surrounding businesses, memorizing those, right? And taking a list of them. Probably it just depends on your learning style, but for me, analytical. And so taking the information and putting it in my notes app, for example. And then I would take probably my top 5 to 10, like the places that maybe have the highest reviews on Yelp or whatever, and I would add those to the places that I would frequent, right? And I would start sprinkling those into my week, right? So restaurants, for example, same thing. I would start to get to know the servers. I would start to get to know whatever business I'm going to or using, even if it's getting an oil change or getting my hair done, whatever, right? I would get to know those people, get to know their names. And as I make good connections, I would invite them out to coffee or lunch or breakfast, dinner, whatever. And that's where I would start, really, really focusing on learning the area, building the relationships in a way that is memorable for them, that has meaning to them. I would look for a way to really authentically help whoever it is that I'm talking to feel connected to me and connected to themselves ultimately, if I've done a good job of listening and asking good questions. And that's where I would start, man. I've done it. Even when I moved out to Northwest Arkansas, that's exactly what I did. And within the first two to 3 weeks, as I started memorizing all the areas around me, of the areas that I knew that I wanted to specialize in, that were strategic, right? So you could decide what's strategic for you. So for me, it's like I wanted to get to know the companies. There's multiple, Fortune 500 companies up there where I was at. And so I'm like, cool, they're there, there's Walmart, right? Like, so I wanted to I was strategic about it. I wasn't just like, all right, let me get overwhelmed with a map, right? It was strategic. So, but I'm a big fan of starting out like super, just like what I did with Big Bear, just stay very niche-y, right? And then on top of that, as I get to know people and just plugging myself in, not just coffee shops, restaurants, businesses that I would frequent, but, join a pickleball league, immediately get a gym. Like that would be like first and foremost right up there with the coffee shop, right? And just start meeting people. And then what happens when you do that, it's not necessarily, it doesn't feel like an overnight success, but what happens is they remember you. They remember your name. You remember their name every time you walk in, hey, Sally, hey, Jim, hey, how's your dog doing? Like that kind of stuff, right? And they will remember you. And then what happens is they start running into people, or they have people come into their business that will talk about real estate. And they're like, that's funny. I know someone that would be a good, if you got an agent, great. Hey, but if you don't, I know Jon Vasquez. Here's his phone number, and that happens. And that has happened. That does happen. To this day, it happens. And then on top of that is I would find, taking it from there, I would find out where are the buyers coming from, right? And so for me, I know all my buyers are coming from LA, Orange County, San Diego, up here in Big Bear. So where am I networking? Am I networking across the country? I actually am meaning building relationships with those agents. I do go to the conferences and such and build relationships there. But my main focus is I'm building relationships with agents from the target markets of where I know my buyers are coming from.
Sure.
Why I like buyers. Everybody glorifies listings. Listings are great. But why I like buyers is buyers, they turn into sellers. And so I would encourage any agent to think of it as a long game. It's very much like a buy and hold strategy, like Warren Buffett would talk about with the stock market. Very, very similar. You invest quality over quantity, in my opinion. This is another point that I would make. You invest in quality relationships, and you would make them quality by what you bring to the table, asking good questions, listening, remembering their names, their dogs, whatever, right? And then you do that enough time where it's quality, the quantity, it starts the snowball, right? And it starts that small, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you got a big database, maybe not a 5,000 person database, but man, I'll take all day long, I'll take a database of 200 referral agents over a 1,000 person database, 1,000% all day long. And I know it works. So that is the beginning stages, and all of that can happen within 1 month. And within 1 month, you have even 3 quality conversations. Let's just say let's just say one quality conversation at a coffee shop, pickleball game, gym, whatever. You have one of those a day. Promise. In 30 days, you got 30, right? Or take a day off. You got whatever that would be, 27 or 26, something like that, days where you've had a quality conversation with someone. They remember you in 2 months, approximately 50, right? Out of, as you start snowballing that into the months, I guarantee you 1 to 2 people are going to end up calling you and saying, hey, I got a referral for you. And obviously you can go way faster with agent to agent referrals, So.
Jon, I think you just gave us a masterclass in, really starting to build a great business wherever you are. I mean, listen, you could be doing business and you don't do this. This is something that you could easily add into what you're doing as a real estate agent and follow that specific plan, which I think is awesome. Let me ask you a question on that. So you've talked a lot about, these one-to-one connections and relationships and kind of going deep on these and stuff. And clearly you're good at that. Is that something that you think you were born with, or is this a skill that you develop over time?
100% developed over time. Yes, there's some qualities there that I was born with. I liked people since I was a kid, right? I would not say I was an introvert as a kid. Probably a lot like my son. My son's riding for sure, a lot like my son. He rides his bike around the neighborhood all the time. He knows everybody in the neighborhood, and I don't. But that's, so there is a little bit of that extroverted, character trait. But this is something that also works for introverts. Hey, you may not be interested in going to conferences. You may not be interested in driving around town and chit-chatting with people, but you might feel comfortable. Maybe if you're a little more introverted, you might feel more comfortable having that one-to-one coffee time, right? And so for that person, I would say reverse engineer it a little bit and definitely stay true to yourself if you're a little bit more introverted. Instead of going out and adding, X amount of people per day, come up with a list of your top favorite people that you already know and just have more meaningful conversations, right? One-on-ones, go do those coffee get-togethers, go to yoga, whatever, right? So it really works for both the introvert and the extrovert and everyone in between. And you could tailor it different, same concept, but to each need. So.
I love it, man. That's such great advice. So, Jon, one thing I want to ask you about with that plan that you haven't mentioned is social media. So I know you do a lot on social media. How would that play a part, or how does that play a part in your business now?
Yeah, another really good question, man. So honestly, I'm still working out the social media thing because I highly value authentic connections. I value authenticity. And social media is kind of it's another world where you could easily get caught up in doing it in an inauthentic way, right? So I've wrestled with that. If I'm just being, very honest with myself, I've wrestled with that. There's kind of a baseline though that I have kept since I really started getting into social media back in 2013 or whatever it was, 2014. So, helping people realize that you're staying active. I mean, I don't have a ton of followers, but I could tell you that the followers that I have, I think I have like 1,700 on Instagram right now. I get a lot of referrals and a lot of people reaching out to me for that. So it's, again, I would rather have a small circle of people that send me referrals than a 5,000 or million, follower base where I'm only getting a sliver of that.
Sure.
But so it's kind of like, where have I been and where am I at right now and where am I going? So where I have been and where I'm at right now is, as lame as it is, and I don't like it, posting the just solds, the new listing. Like, I don't like that, but I have continued to do it because what it shows people, particularly for me, and this may not apply to everybody, but for me, it's like, I do list quite a few properties. I've really nurtured that side of the business with listings. I want people to know that I'm a listing agent in Big Bear, and same thing with buyers. So like, as lame as it is, I do it because it's still getting results. If I wasn't getting any results on it, I would cut it. I would have cut it years ago.
Yeah.
So it's showing people, oh, Jon is active. Cool. Mission accomplished. That's exactly what I want that to do. Right. Even if I'm not getting a ton of comments, on any particular post, it is. And I know because I'm getting the feedback from people. Oh man, every time I look at your social media, you're slinging deals.
Right.
In my head, I'm like, cool, that's exactly what I wanted them to know, or to think, even if it's a slower season. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm staying true to that. I do like doing videography. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of getting back to growing the team again, because it's hard to wear all the hats. It's hard to be in all aspects of the business and grow it at the same time. And so, I do have some really exciting things that I'll be doing as I start freeing up my time by bringing in these new agents. And so where I'm heading with it is something both fun. It's, I was an artist long before I was a real estate agent. And so I do enjoy marketing. I'm always trying to bring a different flavor authentically. But yeah, where I'm heading with it is bringing back in some of the artistic outlet, bringing in some fun, and also, not just something that entertains people, but brings true value with information. And so one of those areas is short-term rental. A lot of people for my area, they want to know, how do I do this short-term rental thing successfully? And so I'm going to be really leaning into that and providing a lot of value there. And then I'm also going after agent attraction and giving really good value there. And so just lots of free coaching, basically. So that's where I'm heading with it.
I love it, man. I was going to say, for you, because of how authentic you are, you don't have to make a boring, just listed, just sold post. I mean, yours could be, so much more authentic, telling the story behind the deal or the story behind the client, or, what that looks like. I think people actually resonate with that a lot more from what I see. Like, I hate those. I rag on realtors all the time. Like, stop just saying, just sold. Like, no one cares. But tell me the story, like about the house or the client or whatever. Like, that's so much more fun and interesting.
I love that. I love that you said that, man. And my head has been there as well. I rag on myself as it is. But, there's kind of this ebb and flow I've noticed, at least within the stage that I'm in right now with regards to social media, because it's such an incredible asset to generate organic leads and just overall influence. I love when it does that.
Yeah, I was about to say, why did this thing put a thumbs down there? I didn't do that.
No, it happens all the time. I'll be like this sometimes, and it's a Zoom type thing.
Yeah, that's so funny. I didn't give you a thumbs down.
That's funny. Hey, I'll take it. It's all good. Motivates me. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, man, this ebb and flow where it's like, okay, well, and I hear a lot of agents struggle with this, with like, what happens is, especially as solo agents, you're trying to do it all, and nobody has enough time to do it all.
For sure.
A lot of people that they haven't yet hit true burnout yet. So maybe they're just in the grind and they're trying to do it all. And what I've noticed, just being kind to myself, because I am a person that is like, what's next? Let's just keep it, like, naturally, that's the way I am. But I've had to really resist against that temptation to constantly be doing that, because there's just not enough time in the day. And I want to have a good work-life balance and maintain that.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes, like, in that ebb and flow of growth, sometimes it's okay to just maintain, right? And I'm making that point because I really want people to hear that. Like, sometimes it's okay to maintain. Maybe not forever. That's fine. Like for people like us that really value growth, definitely it's not going to be forever. But it's really good to sometimes give yourself that grace to sometimes just maintain what is working, right?
Yeah.
And that absolutely has applied to social media for me, where it's like, yeah, I've got all these ideas. I got folders of things that I'm planning on implementing, right? But there will always be the opportunity to do better and better and better. Like everybody, even like the best of the best. Like I think of like Peter McKinnon. He's
Yeah.
incredible photographer, mega million follower on YouTube. He could always do more and do better, right?
Yeah.
But how that applies for us, in the middle or maybe at the bottom, it's like, sometimes you got to give yourself grace along the path of success and growth. And so it's like, I'm not going to stay where I'm at right now. Like, I'm not going to keep doing the just solds and the pending. Like, I'm going to rag on myself until I get over it and stop doing that. But I'm also going to give myself a lot of grace, because if it's at least getting a return, I'm going to do it for now. And then when I'm going to have the capacity and I've got some of these other things covered within my team, cool. Now I'm nixing that, social media maintenance, and now I'm going to be taking it to the next level. Right. So,
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. So, John, for you, one of the questions I definitely was going to ask you about is YouTube. So, your channel, you haven't posted on in a while, but I feel like, not to give you advice, but I think have such a great camera presence, and also you're so relatable on there, especially with it being kind of that destination market. I feel like YouTube would be like so awesome for you. Is that something you went away from purposely? I know it's hard to maintain. YouTube is a tough thing, but I wanted to ask you about that, and then encourage you to get back on.
you man, and I fully receive the encouragement. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's just one of the other things that we're talking about here, where it's like, yeah, here's exactly what happened there. As I was wrapping up a lot of those restaurant videos, really doing a pretty cool thing there for the community. That was right before I hit burnout. And it was like that was happening as I was hitting burnout. And burnout, if you haven't had burnout, you definitely want to avoid it, because it's kind of a scary thing. You feel it on a really deep emotional level, mental level. A lot of my clients, like I was able to maintain my business just fine during those years, like where I would say a lot of people didn't notice. But my mental and emotional health was declining. And as a result of that, just like I was kind of scared ultimately, because I was like, man, I hope I just have enough energy to keep bringing money in the door and like building the business. That was a very busy season as I was building out the YouTube channel, and I basically tabled it for the most part. I've dabbled in it a little bit since then, but it's taken me, gosh, it's been a year and a half now
Yeah,
since to really feel like I'm recovering, because you don't want to run a battery. Batteries have optimization, or optimal levels of operating, right? You don't want to run a battery continuously at 25% or 10%, right? The battery life will diminish very quickly, right? Whether it's an iPhone or a car battery or whatever. I brought up the battery analogy because that's kind of how our emotional and mental capacities are, where it's like, a lot of times, a lot of us, especially in this hustle culture, it's like, everybody applauds the person that is grinding it out and getting all these, hitting all these massive milestones. But look at all the people that are like burning out, whether it's celebrities or, in the real estate space. Like I see it all the time. People are like burning out right and left. Well, just like a battery that all of a sudden you've been running it at 25% capacity. At some point that's going to crap out, and you're going to have to get a new iPhone, or you're going to have to get a new battery, right? New car battery. And so that's what I was kind of in an emergency state with my internal battery, where I was like, I better bring this thing back to life, starting with my mental and emotional health. And so now that that's there, I'm at optimal capacity. I literally told my wife a couple of months ago, I'm like, man, because usually by the new year, I'm ready, I'm hustling, right? Uh, But I gave myself quite a bit of space to kind of breathe and enjoy the holidays, and not really grind it out. And that included social media, that included YouTube, where it's like I've been in maintenance mode with that stuff. But now I'm like, I told her, I feel I'm at 85, 90%. I'm kind of ready to get rocking again, you know?
Yeah, I love that, man. Well, hey, if you ever need anything on YouTube, I've spent a long time kind of studying real estate. All YouTube channels really, but real estate, and done a lot of coaching. Hired coaches for that. I started a Dallas channel just for fun to see what would happen. So in 3 months, I got it monetized, got to like 1,700 subscribers. I have one video at like 120,000 views, and it got a bunch of leads in and stuff, which is not my focus. But I wanted to do it to show agents like, hey, this, you can do this very quickly, and you can start getting leads in your market with YouTube. Because I firmly believe, outside of the personal connections, YouTube is the best one to spend your time on, and long form, like 30, 45 minute, hour long videos where people can really get to know you through that. Because then the leads you get from that are like, they're literally better than the referrals, because they call you, and they would call me and be like, hey, what's up, Danny? I saw you with your son, and like, so let's go buy a house. And I'm like, well, let me refer you to my business partner, because I don't do it, but it's amazing. So I would, especially for you, because such a good, camera presence, great personality. I think for your business, that would be awesome.
Fully receive that, man. I love that. And it does re-inspire me to get back to it. So,
yeah. And look, I was looking at your channel. Look, clearly people want to see what you have, because you got that one video about putting chains on that got like 10,000 views,
Yeah.
Like, so people want to see what's going on in the area and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, man. I'm sure I want to pick your brain on that more.
Anytime. Yeah. Anytime. Reach out. I'd love to. I love to help on YouTube. I think it's such a great platform for real estate. And believe it or not, even though there's a lot of competition, it's underutilized because most people are not doing it the right way. And so, you can really like quickly dominate an area in a market for sure.
Thank you.
Very cool. So John, I want to talk a little bit about kind of your, what you do in your market specifically, because one of the things that, we talked about offline, or I think you might have written before, is how you really specialize in helping people with these short-term rentals. Being in a vacation market is a little bit different. And I'm actually really curious about this, because we almost bought in Big Bear, I think like 10 times. When we lived in LA, we were always like, okay, let's buy. And then we'd say, well, let's wait. And are we really going to use it? We don't know what to do with it. Unfortunately didn't meet someone like you that could walk us through that. But I'd love to hear that process on how you do that with your clients.
Yeah. And so I do offer free coaching to all of my clients. When someone's introduced to me, or, I get a lead opportunity to help people in the space, I always start out that initial conversation by, after hearing them out, getting to know them, building a little bit of that rapport in the initial few minutes. I let them know that I'm, hey, it sounds like you're wanting to do short-term rentals. That's exciting. I'm just going to offer this up front. I do offer free coaching to all of my clients. I mean, even just outside of helping you find real estate, I do offer those services. The same success that I'm having with my short-term rental in Big Bear is everything that I'm doing to outperform homes that are much bigger than mine, to get the revenue that I'm getting. Everything that I did to get those results is what I train people on. And so I'm following all of my own coaching. Would you be interested in that? Oh yeah, John, absolutely. Would love that. That's perfect. Okay, awesome. So before we even get together and look at properties, here's what I would love to do. I would like to send you my Calendly link. You could pick a day and a time to schedule a 45-minute Zoom call with me. And we're going to go over all things Big Bear and short-term rental. Specifically, that conversation is going to be specifically tailored to what it is that you want to do. I'm going to want to ask you more questions, really get into seeing what it is that you're wanting to do, like your dreams. Like I want to see it through your eyes. So I'm going to be asking you questions about what is it that you're envisioning? Because most people want to buy a cabin in the mountains to enjoy as a family, but they're only going to come up a few times a year, maybe 10, right?
Yeah.
And so I just let them know, like, hey, that's what I'm going to want to do. And then we'll dive right in. I'm going to give you, a ton of great information. Basically, all of it's going to be condensed, super concentrated, short-term rental information that you need to know before even looking at real estate in Big Bear. So I'm going to go over what I call the 4 pillars of what makes a great short-term rental. I'm going to go over the zip codes and the areas of Big Bear. I'm going to go over the 2 jurisdictions, where to buy, where not to buy, If you're interested in the politics of it and how the locals are doing and what they're thinking around the short-term rental space, who's the mayor, what's changed there with who's on city council and how that's positively impacted the short-term rental market. Like, we'll cover all of that. And then we're going to start dissecting what it is that you're envisioning as far as what kind of property that you're envisioning for your family. We're going to dissect, okay, how do I help you get what it is you're wanting to achieve with the revenue, and also with what you're wanting to get as a property and enjoy as a family. So fast forward, we have that Zoom call. And one of the first questions that I ask them is, I say, okay, let's look at this as short-term rental investment as a spectrum. Okay. On one side of the spectrum, I have people that they don't care about ever visiting Big Bear. They live on the East Coast somewhere. It's all numbers. It's all return on investment. It's all cap rate. It's all that stuff, right? So there's that. And then on the other side of the spectrum, which is really where I would say most people are reaching out to me, where they're coming from is, hey, Jon, I want a house in the mountains, and I might, I'll rent it. I'll short-term rent it. And I'm okay if I break even. I don't need to cash flow. And then you got kind of right in the middle where it's like, no, I'm going to use the cabin a few times, but it's really, the short-term rental revenue, like, it's definitely an equity play. So I'm going to hang on to it for a handful of years. And even more important than that, I need cash flow monthly. Okay, cool. Well, each one of those clients and everything in between is going to require something different, right? So I have them self-identify. And then from there, I tailor the conversation. A lot of it's, points that I go over with every single person that's like super important for investing in Big Bear. But then that enables me to tailor it to each individual and what their investment goals are. So yeah, that's my approach.
I love it, man. I think that kind of consultative approach is so good for clients. I'm sure they really appreciate it. And if I still lived in LA, I would definitely be buying something up there. Man, I used to love going up there, not only for snowboarding, but I used to go off-roading all the time and camping and all kinds of.
Cool, man. Yeah, it's a special place, man. And I'll say one more thing on that last point.
Yeah.
Usually after that call, they're always like, this is incredible. My head's spinning. Let me digest it. It's awesome. And then I say, well, okay, perfect. Just so you know, I also want to take the thinking out of it for you beyond the transaction. I'm offering you, I said I offer free coaching. What I'm offering you is 4 free 1-hour Zoom calls where I literally will show you exactly how to, everything from the permitting all the way to the actual launch of like what software I'm using to mostly automate my business. I could literally teach you how to do all of that. And so anyways, that's the consultation part of it.
That's awesome. By the way, all great topics for your YouTube channel. Everything you just talked about.
Thanks.
I love it. Well, Jon, we've covered so much good stuff, about your business and how you've grown it and where you're going from here and all of that. So wanted to ask you here as we wrap up, is there any last parting words of advice you have for real estate agents who are really trying to grow their business and make it in the industry?
Yeah, I would say, and this is just coming from a soft spot in my heart, man, become excellent at taking care of yourself so that you could ultimately be excellent at taking care of others. And so realtors, like anybody that wants to stick in the business, stick around and build a business worth having and actually enjoy it, very quickly it's easy to get you're wearing so many hats, right? Starting out especially. And it's really easy to lose sight of some of the things that matter most, right? Self-care, like we could only take care of people. We could only meet people as far as we've met ourselves, right? And so if we're not taking care of ourselves, what's crazy is the money as we make more money, that can be major dopamine hits to the brain that can kind of deceive us and make us think that we're doing all right. And then what sneaks up on us is our health and our body will say something different, right? And so that, just to kind of recap on that, get good at taking care of yourself while you're building and taking care of your business and your clients.